everybody has their story of how they got doing what they're doing. And when you actually sit down and start talking to people, their stories are pretty interesting. And what really inspired me through the whole thing was like, you know what, my story's kind of neat. And the more and more people I meet, their stories are equally as cool, if not cooler. And it'd be great to have an avenue to share that with people, to show that being a small business owner is a faith walk, first of all. But second of all, it is extremely rewarding if you're able to find a small business that people want that product.
Welcome, everybody, to the Unexpected Podcast. My name is Titus, and I am honored to be able to host the very first pilot episode of Unexpected, which is a Red Barn home podcast. And I'm sitting here with the person whose idea this whole thing was, so I'm not even going to begin to take credit for it. But this is sitting down with Ben Crawford for the pilot episode, the person whose idea this podcast was. Ben, thanks for having this idea and putting this together and investing in the equipment to make this as good as it can be.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of it, Titus. It means a lot. It just kind of popped in my head one day. Maybe we should start talking to other people that do what I do, as far as small business owners that have taken their hobby and turned it into a business that they love to do.
Yeah, I love the concept. Now, do you listen to very many podcasts?
I don't listen to any podcast.
Oh man,
none.
So this is a unfiltered. There's no standard here for you. It can be exactly what you want it to be.
Yeah, I am unfettered by other people's ideas or concepts, or
more of a music guy.
Yeah,
well, who knows? Maybe this will get you listening to some podcasts with all the time you have in your shop, right?
I seriously doubt it.
All right. Well, let's talk about the title before we talk about you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be doing what I'm doing here for the rest of the most of the episodes, where you get a chance to talk to other people. But for this first episode, we kind of wanted to introduce you and who you are. And it's a little easier to talk back to somebody than to just talk about yourself. So, but let's talk about the podcast first, which you already mentioned, giving people who do what you do. Dive into that a little bit more. Are we talking about small business owners, crafters, woodworkers specifically? Dive into that a little bit.
Well, really anybody, because through my time on social media, I've come in contact with a lot of different people through my customer base, people who are also woodworkers, but also professional hunters or photographers or small business owners or large business owners. And everybody has their story of how they got doing what they're doing. And when you actually sit down and start talking to people, their stories are pretty interesting. And what really inspired me through the whole thing was like, you know what, my story's kind of neat. And the more and more people I meet, their stories are equally as cool, if not cooler. And it'd be great to have an avenue to share that with people, to show that being a small business owner is a faith walk, first of all. But second of all, it is extremely rewarding if you're able to find a small business that people want that product. And sometimes that product is just the person themselves. I've got a couple social media influencers lined up that their product is them. They're out hunting or doing crazy lifestyle things that is super interesting to wonder how somebody gets into that. And you just don't one day step out of your house and be like, I'm going to go be an influencer. It just kind of, it happens over, a war of attrition, and it's not an instant thing. So it's more of, finding out how they got to that point. That's really what I was interested in learning about everybody.
Yeah. And it'll probably be interesting to see like common themes, maybe unexpectedly, that, all these people kind of have this personality or this mindset. And because you can be a small business owner and work full time in your business, which is what you do. And you can be a small business owner and have it be a hobby that turned into a small business that you're doing on the side. So there's a pretty wide scope of people in this category that you're looking to reach.
Correct. And the one like main characteristic that I've learned from the different people that I've talked to is they're all just grinders. They're all just out there just getting after it. And, I don't know if I ever stopped working.
I was just going to say, is that how you describe yourself?
Yeah, it's even when I'm not working, I'm working. It's always running through my head. I don't have the ability to like clock out for the day and leave, it's an attribute that I picked up when I was with FedEx when I used to work for them in the trucking industry. You never were not working. There was always something going on.
So you kind of developed that mentality even before you were working for yourself.
Correct. It was, well, and even before that, growing up on a farm, farmers are the same way. They never stop working, and it just...
No days off.
No days off, 7 days a week. From when I wake up to when I go to bed, I'm either thinking about it, doing stuff on the computer when I'm not making stuff, in the shop, lining up whatever, buying materials, lining up trucking, setting up the next job, doing customer service. It's always going.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about your business, Red Barn Home Furnishings.
Yeah.
How would you describe that to somebody in case nobody knows what that is? How can they find you? How did you get started doing that?
Well, what Red Barn Home Furnishings is the best description is a high-end custom furniture business. I do high-end hardwood furniture, no soft stuff, no upholstered stuff. But
I feel like that's just not on brand for you.
Yeah,
softwood.
It's just not my thing. But it's all very, very high-end stuff. I do have, for people that have more moderate budgets, I have things available there. But it tends to be, once people get going, they keep adding and going bigger and bigger.
Maybe once they see what you're able to do or the potential.
Yeah. And, obviously right now what's super popular is the epoxy work. But that's just a small portion of what I do, as far as different styles from shaker to all the way up to the big river pours and conference tables and things like that. Everything in the house from as small as charcuterie boards, cutting boards, up to big tables, end tables, coffee tables, a lot of tables. But the other thing that makes me a little bit unique is that I cut all the trees myself. I mill everything myself. Everything's in-house, from selecting the trees to harvesting them, milling them, drying them, finishing product, everything design. I do all the design work. Everything is internal. It is literally from tree to table with my two hands, from start to finish. And that makes things a little bit more unique because I'm one of the, I would say, few woodworkers who can literally take a customer right to the spot where I source their wood and say, this is where this tree grew.
Yeah, it's very unique.
And, and that's another avenue that I'm able to do where customers have their own trees and they come in and say, hey, can you make something out of this for me? And do a lot of those, what I would call legacy pieces that are, part of their family history, and the furniture continues to be as the tree moves into its next stage of life.
Yeah, it's got to be cool to see the owners of that, their reaction to a piece like that, moving from one thing to the next with your help. But you talked about how people don't become influencers overnight, and people don't just start making giant slab tables overnight. So how did you get started, and at what point did it turn from something that you had the ability to do into, hey, I could do this for a business?
Well, the whole story, it goes back pretty far. Like I said, I did work in the trucking industry for 19 years. Part of the build up to going out on my own was while I was doing that. But if I go back to, I don't want to go too deep back, because it's childhood stuff, being out in the woods and things like that, and being active out helping on our family farm when I grew up. and learning how to run chainsaws then. And it got me into forestry, which is what I went to school for. Got my degree in that, but the forestry industry didn't, it wasn't attractive to me when I got out of Ohio State, so I went into the transportation industry. And, after a number of years, life takes crazy turns. And I had moved to my wife's family farm, and we were building a house. And there were some scraps left over from the house because I got the wild idea when we were building it to do all the trim work in the house. And so my father and I worked on all the trim work together and did, the classic crowns that you get in old farmhouses. And I wanted something special like that in the house. And I had a bunch of leftover wood from that. And started goofing around. If anybody's ever built a house, they know that the builders tend to leave some stuff there. So I had a can of old stain that they used to stain the stairways, and I had all this scrap poplar wood sitting there. And I was like, well, I'm gonna make my son a toy table or a drawing table or something. And I had some old crappy tools that I got at a garage sale. I had a $5 table saw and a throwaway miter saw that my dad didn't need anymore. And that's what I used to make the first table. It was all hand sanded. And I'm out there, no gloves on, putting stain on with my just bare hands and, doing everything pretty rudimentary. And that was the first piece that I made, and it turned out really well. And I was really happy with it. So I started making some more stuff out of that scrap. And it was, the nice way to put it was a shabby chic. I look back at the stuff that I started out making, and it's a little embarrassing. Sure. That I was like, yeah.
I feel like that's a common thread.
It's like, this is beautiful. But it was actually kind of crappy. And in hindsight, but at the time with my skill level, I was pretty proud of myself and, started making some stuff. And, my wife told me that she really thought I should start selling things on Etsy. And I was like, okay, I'll think about that. And then, very shortly after that, she passed away, and I really dove into the furniture it was therapy. And I really, really got after it, put all my energy into it. And it was one of the ways that I found some peace. For whatever reason, it was a focus.
Maybe like a getaway from the real world.
It was a getaway, yeah. It was a way to get away and to focus with all the stuff that was going on. I was a single dad, and doing the best I could to take care of the kids on my own. And I, kind of hung on to the idea that she had said that I need to start selling my stuff. So at first, I literally went through the house room by room and started making the furniture that I had promised to make her. And then it just kind of grew from there in a very rapid way. I had, there was social media, and I would post pictures of the stuff I was making, and started having friends saying, hey, that's pretty cool. Could you make something like that for me? And, that's really when it started to go. And, I leaned into it even harder, and started buying some tools and getting myself some stuff in a little bit nicer shop. And really, really started jamming at it. And
what time period is this? Like, what years is this?
This I went out and created the Red Barn name and my sites and all that stuff, my Facebook and my website in 2015. Okay. We lost her in 2014, November 2014. And I think it was in March. I said, I'm going to create this Red Barn. And it was named that because my first shop was in a red barn.
Yeah, this is a very controversial.
It's a very controversial thing. Everybody,
we should probably just address it in this pilot episode.
Yeah,
because when people look into it, they're gonna ask. So go ahead and address the barn color.
They're gonna ask about that. So the original shop was in a red barn. My current shop and my shop I'm going to be in for the foreseeable future is white, and it drives everybody crazy. And it's,
understandably.
Understandably. I mean, the other part of that is that the barn that I'm currently in until 1958 was red. And if anytime I open a wall up or we start to do stuff, you find the red paint still on the barn, on the interior portions. So, and if Dad lets the paint wear out long enough, you can see that red underneath. But that is the reason why it is red barn in a white barn, is because the original barn was red. And by the time we moved back here to Minerva, it was too late to change the name. Everything was set up, and I'd been
run with it.
I've been going for a couple years, and I have since found out that it keeps people talking.
There you go. That's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. Everybody. Sometimes it's a bad thing. When I'm sitting in line at the bank and somebody leans out their car and yells, "Hey, you jackass! Your barn's white." And I'm like, yeah, I know it's.
You colorblind?
I know it's white, but you just have been. It's clearly been stewing for that person for a while. So I'm in the fronts of people's minds. Maybe not in a good way, but. It is, free marketing because everybody I talk to, from my biggest customers and my smallest customers, it is part of the conversation. And but that is why. It's because the original shop was in a red barn.
Yeah. Now, was it in 2015 then that you quit your 9-to-5, or at what point did you do that?
No. So I did what I considered the smart thing to do. I still worked full time for FedEx, and then in my part-time, in the evenings, I would work on the furniture and on the weekends. So I did that until 2017, I believe. Okay. Until 2017.
So a couple years, let's just say.
Yeah, a couple years. And in the spring of 2017, I went out full-time on my own. It was shortly after moving back here, because the original shop was up in Fremont, Ohio, and moved back here in 16, and then went out on my own in 17.
Was making that jump nerve-wracking for you, or did you know you were ready? I feel like that can be something that holds people back.
Well, it is something that holds people back, and I wouldn't say I was nervous. I wasn't really ever nervous. I always kind of, had this faith that this is what I was supposed to be doing. Because when I was with FedEx, even though I was really good at my job, I didn't really enjoy doing it. And I always thought that I had something better to do with my life. And
so maybe that made it a little bit easier to make that jump then.
It did. It made it a little bit easier. But then I also had some, great faith that, God had a better path for me to take. And I was kind of leaning on that. And, it was so easy. I know that comes off a little arrogant, but my maturation in the furniture world, obviously, like I said earlier, some of my earlier pieces are a little embarrassing to look at now, But the growth through it, everything always made sense. It just made sense. I could see how to do stuff in my head, and I was actually able to make it happen. I heard a comedian say the other day that in my head, I'm an amazing artist, but when I start painting my brushstrokes look like garbage. That's the thing on the furniture is I can picture things and I can actually make them happen, which, like with painting, for instance, I can't paint. But, or drawing, I'm not a very good sketch artist, but I can take what I see in my head and turn it into almost identical furniture. And so that jump to go out on my own was fairly easy to make because I had belief in myself that I'd be able to do it. And, moving back over here where there was a little bit more population density, I felt like there was enough residential
business opportunities
to keep me going. So that's why I felt like it was, at any given point as a small business owner, there's what my dad likes to call lumpy income, where, you go a couple, 3 months without getting an order and you get a little bit nervous. But
would you say that helps keep you on your toes though?
It does. It helps.
Can't get lazy.
You can't get lazy. It helps keep you motivated and you drive hard, to get those jobs done so that you can hopefully open up space. And, and that's the thing that was interesting to me. I was thinking about it the other day. Since I went out on my own, I've had a 2 to 3 month waiting period for my stuff, solid, since 2017.
That's pretty much what anybody would want.
Yeah.
In their business going out.
Yeah. I mean, there's high times and low times. The summertime tends to be slow, but right around 19, summertime didn't happen anymore. It wasn't a slow time. And that's when I would normally do my forestry business, was in the summertime. It was if it got slow, but that's not the case anymore.
So your forestry business is separate from Red Barn Home Furnishings, correct? Now talk about, would you say that's a trend that you notice on people who work for themselves, is kind of diversifying what they have the ability to do and figuring out how to monetize that? Or can you tap into how that's kind of benefited you besides just kind of picking up those slow times?
I think that if you're a small business owner, you gotta always be trying to find new ways to bring income in. You have to. That's this from different products. My thing that I love to make the most is big tables, but I'm not always getting orders for big tables. And, that's the same for every other small business owner out there. If you see that, you got to be diversified is the buzzword for that, but you got to have a wide range of things that you're capable of offering. And, when I was first starting out, that range was huge. Like, I don't know if I ever turned anybody down with crazy ideas that they would come in, and even ideas that I knew were going to be bad. I'm like, well, if you're willing to pay me to try and do this, I'll give it a shot.
Twist my arm.
Yeah. And, I've had jobs that I've done where, I beg the customer and be like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. I'm telling you don't want to do this. And they're like, no, I want to do it. And then you get it in place and they're like, why'd you let me do this? And
yeah, can only do so much.
But
yeah.
You do the best you can with that, but that's kind of the story of every small business owner. Is when you're first starting out, man, you're willing to do anything just to get some revenue coming in, within reason as far as moral and ethical, parameters, but not anything, I guess, but anything within reason. And, that's where, as you move on, and that's one of the things that I want to love to talk to people about is, what sort of crazy stuff that they had to do to start out to get their name out there. I know what I've had to do to get my name out there, and I'm interested to see what other people have to say as well as far as that goes. But Yeah.
How much of your business is like referrals?
Referrals.
Do you get a lot of repeat customers?
I do. I have quite a few repeat customers. It's actually, it's funny. I got a text message this morning from a gentleman. I made a coffee table for his girlfriend, and he's like, "This thing's awesome. I want to get some for my family." And once people like see the stuff in hand, pictures don't really do justice. I know that Instagram is my primary way of reaching out to people, but the pictures really don't do it. And once customers get it in hand, or I have, somebody goes to a dinner party and they see this table there, and the homeowner's like, "Yeah, put your cell phone on top of his logo and see what happens." And it pulls my website up off of the microchip in it, and they're just kind of floored, and they reach out. And they're like, "I want something like this because it's
this.
It's awesome." So I'd say, 60% is off of referrals, and then 40% is people. Well, it might be more than that because I get so many phone calls every day. It's not even funny about.
It's a good problem to have.
But that's usually people trying to get me to buy trees, and I get 5 of those phone calls for every furniture order. But
so talk about some of the things that you've created. You have to have you've made a lot of different things, specializing in tables. What would you say has been to date one of your favorite projects that you've gotten to work on?
I got a few of them. One of my, I guess you could call it signature pieces that it creates a lot of buzz, and I had a really, really fun time developing, was the coffee tables that I make for Black Rifle Coffee, with the coffee beans and the spent 556 brass suspended in the clear epoxy with the live edge walnut slabs. Those ones were really, really fun to make. I had a couple mistakes with the initial ones, that I now teach in the classes. When we do the classes, be like, "Hey, you got to make sure your epoxy cures for the appropriate amount of time, because the new epoxy will dissolve it and your coffee beans will float to the top," and things like that. But those ones were a lot of fun to figure out, and they led to the process I developed with the coffee tables, led to some really, really cool tables, like the one that I did with with the turkey feathers in it. That one was super, super cool.
Just some things that people maybe have never seen or thought of putting together.
Different way to for hunters are avid hunters, and they're big outdoorsmen, and they're advocates for the environment. And
so to have like a functional table and a showpiece together is really unique.
Correct, because there's only so many ways that you can put turkey feathers on display. You have a fan, or you have the full turkey, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. And this is another way that I developed with that customer to put those turkey feathers on display for everybody to see in a very functional way. And that one was a lot of fun. And probably the most nerve-wracking one I ever did was a huge Mappa burl river pour, where the river went into the legs too. And that one was super, super, super cool.
You did that one last year, right?
I did that one last summer, yeah. Okay. And that one was really, really a lot of fun to make. And
do you find that the ones that are most nerve-wracking, if they're going to work, turn out being the ones that can be the most rewarding and like, that's my favorite project?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the old saying that anything easy isn't worth a damn. The easy,
the work that went into that.
Yeah, the easy projects, I'm like, yeah, I turn it over to the customer, and they appreciate it, and I put everything I have into them. But the level of skill and knowledge of how the different substrates are going to work with each other, and how the different woods are going to do, and how everything mounts up, and doing all the structural stuff to make sure everything holds together properly, all that going into it. And then you get the thing in place, and it's one of those if somebody has, if you walk into somebody's house and they have just mundane furniture, you just walk past it, you don't think anything of it. And then if they have what I call a showpiece or a focal point in there, and literally as you walk in, it changes the entire feel of the whole house. And those are the ones that are fun to make, is those pieces that are just like, you walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, like, where the hell did you get this table? You know, that's what I'm shooting for when I'm making these things. And when I'm making any project, you know, especially ones that I know are going to get a lot of vision, a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of eyes on it.
How rewarding is that for you, though, to see people's reactions to what you've created, whether it's something that they asked you to make, so obviously they had something in mind, or just seeing something that you've done that they didn't know was possible? Is that rewarding for you?
It's very rewarding. At the same time, I struggle with being okay with it. Like, people giving me accolades for it. Like, my wife tells me, she's like, you know, you need to learn to say thank you instead of, yeah, I think it's cool too.
Comes across a little different.
Yeah. Cause like, I don't know how to handle the compliments. I'm just like,
stuff to get used to.
like, yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. But you know, it just sometimes, you know, I spend the entire day in a wood shop by myself, and there are days where I don't speak for 8 hours. I'm just working, and if I do speak, it's to my dog. And then to go from that to, you know, coming here to Hartville, for instance, and I've got a room full of people sitting there staring at me, watching me do what I do. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's not necessarily why I'm looking to do it. I'm just trying to make something really cool and unique and make, you know, one family happy.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, and make one family happy while also inspiring another family to buy a table. Sure. You know, that's what it comes down to, is I'm trying to inspire the next customer to be able to trust that I'm going to make something really cool for them that they're going to love for the rest of their lives. Right. And it's not necessarily, you know, I'm not doing the stuff to get attention from famous people or to become famous myself. I'm just famous enough to keep business going.
Right.
You know, that's
which is
about it.
Probably the most important thing right now.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. Is being able to pay the bills and keep operating.
And one thing that I think is important to add and to note is, and this is probably something that you wouldn't say about yourself because you're a humble person, but is the level of perfectionism that you have in your end products. I mean, I've heard in stories of you going and replacing products that the customer didn't even notice something was wrong, but you're like, you know, that's not right. I'm gonna fix that and make that right. I mean, those are the things I think that separates you from a lot of other people, and that creates probably that loyalty with that customer who's like, man, I didn't even see anything wrong and Ben wasn't happy with it, you know. Between that and then just, you know, like you're talking about the processes that you go through to figure things out, you know, those are things that people probably don't think about necessarily when they see a piece of your furniture, but you know in your mind what it took to make that, and all the probably failures that probably even went before that to figure out how to make it correct.
Yeah, a lot of failure. You know, that's nobody just wakes up one day and is a master craftsman. You know, it is a long process, and I've been doing this 8.5 years, and every day I'm still learning something new every day. You know, sometimes, you know, I just did a table, or I'm working on a table that I poured the epoxy and it didn't cure. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. So, and it's a very, very expensive table. And so there was 3 or 4 days of trying different stuff to get it to cure and get it to do this and to get it to solid up and figure out what happened. And, you know, eventually I had to, you know, carve it all out and re-pour that spot, and feather it all together. And the amount of work that goes into one little spot like that, like people don't realize that. They get the finished product and they just think hey, that thing went together without any problems.
First try.
Yeah. And,
You're okay with letting them think that though too.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But, most of the projects, they take, there's always a hiccup on every single project that you have to overcome. It's not, every once in a while I'll get some goon come on the social media and be like, what you do is the definition of unskilled work, things like that. And it's like, man, you don't even know. Like, you don't even know. Yeah. I don't like toot my horn on that very often. Every once in a while I'll be like, yeah, this is really difficult. You should appreciate it. But for the most part, I try to make it look easy because, or maybe it does look easy because I know what I'm doing. But, that's also, like you said, I don't talk about it much because I don't like tooting my own horn. It's like my least favorite thing to do next to making content. Those are my two least favorite things to do. But, you have to market yourself some.
Yeah. How would you say you learn? You say you learn trial and error. But is that predominantly, or do you glean from others? Do you talk to other people? I mean, is it, yeah. How do you learn, I guess is the question.
That's a good question. Well, to answer that, I'll say that, one time I asked somebody asked me rather, if I learned the stuff watching YouTube, and the answer is no.
You're probably right outside that generation.
Yeah.
That's my generation. I
don't watch YouTube unless it's a comedian. Yeah. And I know that I am on YouTube. There are a couple of my partners put me on their YouTube page. I don't watch it. I don't watch my own videos. But I did not learn any of this stuff from YouTube. I just started slapping stuff together, and sometimes it turned out good. Sometimes it turned out bad. The epoxy, I can specifically remember when I switched epoxy brands from a very thick brand to the brand I use now, and I didn't properly have the form sealed, and I had $400 of epoxy on the floor in a matter of 10 minutes. And you can walk in my shop and see my mistakes on the floor when they happen. But I've found that doing it hands-on, taking the ideas and pictures I have in my mind and trying to make them a reality is the best way for me to learn, because pain is a great teacher, and the pain of failure or the pain of actually hurting myself make sure that I don't do that same stupid stuff again, or that that way of putting a table together isn't going to work. And that's how I learn is I get stuff in my head and I'm like, well, that might work, and I give it a shot. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then what's funny is that, like, I'll put this stuff together, and then I'll go to a furniture store, and then I'll climb underneath their tables and see how they did it. And it turns out that I did it the exact same way without ever seeing it. And so,
probably some kind of affirmation.
Yeah.
Doing it right.
It is some affirmation. And that's, you do have to recognize the fact that we live in one of the premier areas for high-end furniture. I mean, we do. Ohio, and having to compete with the Amish, that's
kind of they have that reputation.
They have that reputation. They do, and they do nice stuff. But I've been down to furniture shops in Amish country, and I've looked at their attempts at what I do, and I feel really good about myself when I see that, because, I'll walk into the stores and their epoxy's cracked down the middle and things like that, and they still have them for sale. Really? Yeah. But
that's where your quality control,
yeah,
or eye for quality comes through.
little bit, yeah, a little bit. But they that is always a nice, like you said, affirmation. I'll go to the bigger stores, not quite, not big box stores, so to speak, but bigger custom furniture shops, and look at what they have, and I'm, on par with what they're doing, if not better than on some of their products.
Sure. Yeah. Now you touched on doing some things for Black Rifle.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the other companies and such that you've collaborated with. Talk about some of the relationships you've built through your business.
Okay. Well, there was Black Rifle, obviously, and then there's Hartville Hardware.
Well, go back. How did you get Black Rifle's business? I mean, that's just not something to glaze over.
Well, Black Rifle was, honestly, I've been a fan of Black Rifle since one of their commercials first came over my feed on, I think it was Facebook, in 2015. I had one of their videos come across. I'm like, first couple times I watched it, I was like, man, what are these guys all about? And then I actually looked into it a little bit more. I'm like, you know what? I'm all about supporting veterans, so I'm going to buy some of this coffee, see if it's all right. Got it, and it was super good, and very quickly became a loyal customer and a fan of just their mindset on things. And in, I want to say 2018, 19, somewhere in there. 2019. I flipped him a DM on Instagram, said, hey, I've got this idea for a table with American flag floated in epoxy, clear epoxy, and spent brass over top of it. Would you guys be interested in me giving it to you? I really like your vibe, so on and so forth. Would you be into it? Never thinking for a second they would ever answer me.
Because just kind of throwing it out in the dark and seeing what's happening.
Yeah, because that's one thing I do. If people that's one of the ways to get yourself on social media is to try and collaborate with other people. And so I shoot stuff out all the time to people with big followings, and nobody ever answers. Nobody ever answers. And I sent them a message, and 10 minutes later, they messaged me back. They're like, that's awesome. We'd love to have that table. We're actually redoing our lobby. We'd love to have it for our lobby. I was like, no kidding. And started
just like that,
texting this person back and forth, and then started emailing them and set up a delivery time. And my wife and I drove down to San Antonio, Texas, with no thoughts of being paid or anything. I just wanted to give it to them because I know that they have a lot of visibility in the world. And got down there and delivered the table, and all their social media personalities started coming out of the different offices and stuff, and I started meeting all the different people, and they're all like, this table's awesome, we love it. And I actually had mounted microchips in it that pulled up their different YouTube videos.
Oh, wow. Nice little touch.
Yeah, it was really it was a really cool table. And Evan, their CEO, came out, and he's like, he loves woodworking. His dad was in the lumber industry way back when. Started talking with him, had a cup of coffee with him in his office, and started BSing. And started kicking some ideas around about tables. And he's like, I'm going to have you make a coffee table. And then we grew our professional and personal relationships. And, I've made desks and coffee tables for him, and a kitchen table for his house. And the last time we went out to Salt Lake City to deliver a dining room table to him, he had thrown me a video of a guy making a table with coffee beans in it. And he's like, can you do this? I'm like, hell yeah, I can do this. Yeah. And delivered the spec table that time. And he's like, all right, man, we're going to have you do all of our coffee shops that we're opening up.
Yeah, which was in early development at that time, right?
Yeah, which was in early development. And they're still opening them up. And the new shops all have a custom coffee table for me in there.
That's wild.
And
just from a message.
Just from a DM. Yeah, it all led from a DM. And, similar to us, I was a huge customer of Hartville Hardware. I was always coming in here buying stuff. And then, honestly, when you first messaged me about partnering up here, I thought somebody was screwing with me.
This has got to be spam.
I'm like, this is somebody hacked Hartville's account. Yeah. Like, man, this isn't real. And that's what I said the same thing to them when I delivered at Black Rifle. I was like, I honestly thought somebody was messing with me. Yeah. Like, I thought this was an episode of Punked or something.
Well, like you say, when you send, 50 of them out and you get 2 back, maybe, you're used to getting nothing back from people.
Yeah. And usually the 2 they answer are like bots or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, that's part of that, the faith of leaning on yourself, of knowing that if you do get in front of that customer, if you do finally get that one that answers, then you have the opportunity to like really peacock.
Yeah. Showcase your work and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had a few answer me back, and every time somebody answers me back, it's always super positive. So like there's Black Rifle, and then Nina Outdoors, Nina Rogers. She's on Instagram. I did an awesome table for her. Foreverlawn over there in Louisville did a really cool table for them, and working on picture frame projects for them right now. And trying to think of who else. From a corporate level, Layman's Hardware, working on a project for them. It's going to be really, really cool for them, with some live edge pieces and CNC work and all that fun stuff, and epoxy. That one's going to be.
I'm excited to see in person. I've only seen pictures, but of the we have you making the trophy for Grill Fest this year.
Yeah,
which is going to be
pretty
epic.
Trophy for Grill Fest. It's pretty cool looking right now. I got to come up with the secondary trophies. Those should be cool. Traeger grills.
Oh, yeah.
I made those boards for them and talked to their
with pellets embedded in them.
I have Keith with
Kryptonite
Barbecue.
Our boy.
He's going to be on the podcast here at some point. He's delivering that board to
Jeremy Anders.
Yeah, here in pretty soon, I think.
Yeah.
So, as a small business, you're always, trying to hook up with the bigger customers, but, also the everyday, regular people that just want furniture for the house. That's still the lifeblood, that's still what keeps you moving forward.
Yeah. So let's talk about 5 years from now. What do you have goals of what you want to be, want to hit? What does 5 years Red Barn Home Furnishings in the future from now? What does that look like?
I always think of a quote that we used, or I don't know if it's a quote. I don't know who said it, but we always used to say it at FedEx was, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so 5 years from now, my 5-year goal is obviously to continue to grow. I'd love to get to the point where I have enough business to have a few employees, to increase my, what's the word I'm looking for? Improve my facilities, to add more tools, to increase efficiency, to continue to grow revenue, obviously hopefully at an exponential rate, but not so much that I can't handle it, but enough that it justifies expansion.
Sure.
That's, I don't even know if 5 years is the right timeline. I'm thinking, 10, 20 years of being able to hand the business over to the kids and have a viable money-making business that they can take over and, go to the next level. They laugh at me when I say it, but I tell them, I'm like, I'm the Phil Robertson of our family. And you guys need to be Willie and Jace and take this to $1 million level. And I'm laying the groundwork for your success in the future is what I'm hoping for. That would be what my long-term goal is to have my kids or one of the kids, whichever one's interested in it, if more than one's interested in it, be it for them to be able to take over and become a true family-owned business instead of just
like a generational family-owned business at that point.
Yeah, instead of just me grinding in the barn by myself, having, some employees. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, even at the beginning, we were talking about, small business, potentially growing into big. I mean, everybody had to start somewhere. And there's very few huge businesses. I mean, even we're sitting inside Hartville Harbor right now. It was a small family-owned business. The Grandpa Miller was an entrepreneur that diversified and tried a lot of different things, failed in a lot of different things, but it had to grow from somewhere, and so hopefully that can be encouraging to people hearing this conversation or who are dabbling in something or thinking about making the jump and knowing that something, you have to start from somewhere.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of leap of faith to make that jump sometimes.
Yeah. Big time leap of faith. It's a devotional passage. I don't even remember the name of the book, but, in there, it says, this is a faith walk. And it really is. You gotta have faith in yourself, and you gotta have faith that God's not taking you down the wrong path, that he's guiding you in the right direction. And I sleep well at night knowing that I'm going in the right direction that he wants me to go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ben, I have 2 more questions to ask you, and they're pretty easy before we wrap up. The first one is, can you give me you already established you don't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, no.
I hope you listen to this one at least. You don't listen to podcasts. I know you listen to a lot of music. Give me your top 5 jams, because you've always got your headphones in when you're working, and you give everyone a little bit of taste of what you listen to on social. But give me your top 5 that just you listen to those and it's going to be a good day.
Top 5. It's hard to boil it down to 5, but if I have a top 10 list, and I think there's 20 songs on there, but if I really want to get focused in and really, really want to get work done that day, it's actually funny. If I wake up angry, I'm more productive. It goes
belly fuel.
It goes hand in hand with the music I listen to. But I would say if I had to pick 5 to really get me cranking in the shop, you're looking at Here to Stay by Korn.
Is that 5 or 1, or is no particular order?
No particular order.
All
no
right.
particular order. I'm just
throwing them out there.
Remembering them off the top of my head. Here to Stay by Korn. All Out Life by Slipknot. Times Like These by Foo Fighters. It's a little bit softer than the other 2.
All right, a little unexpected.
Trying to remember.
I thought this was going to be an easy question.
It's not an easy question because trying to find them all.
I guess you got to whittle it down.
Yeah. Party Hard by Andrew W.K. And is that 3 or 4?
I think that's 4.
That's 4. And then
what's taking this last spot?
More Human Than Human by White Zombie.
All right.
And that's really difficult to whittle it down to 5.
Do you have a playlist, or you just let them go one for the next?
I have multiple playlists, depending on my mood.
Anger
of the
level.
Day. Yeah. Depending on my mood of the day. There's, some of those playlists don't have titles that are appropriate to say. But I think I've got, the last time I looked, I have like 1,400 songs on my playlist. And, it ranges from, like, on my top 10 is the Hallelujah Chorus. Yeah, I'm all over the place. I got Luke Combs on there. I got Slipknot and Zombie and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Diverse, right? Just diversifying your what you're listening to.
1812 Overture. It's all in there, So and they all get me going in a different direction. So yeah, that's it. Mostly though, it's mostly pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm just going to give you an opportunity to give people kind of an idea of what to expect with the rest of this podcast. So just go over how often an episode we're planning on dropping, who some of the guests you have on, and kind of go over some of the details of what people can expect.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to do at least one a month. If I get a lot of people who are interested, I might go up to twice a month, but I'm definitely going to be once a month. I've got, I think, 13 or 14 people lined up right now. Some of those people are like Sandy Springs Brewing, and they're friends of mine down in Minerva. They really changed that town as far as the downtown vibe down there, and really proud of them and everything they've done. Also have Rhine Revisions, Kryptonite Barbecue, Bloom Hill, and Love Living Here. A lot of the social partners from here, AT Woodworks. Also, Nina Rogers, which is Nina Outdoors, Echo by Design. Kobe Steed, he's a hunter photographer. He's a real interesting cat. And then I'm trying to remember, C. Miller Customs. He does all my steel work. He's a real fun guy to talk to. And I know I'm forgetting somebody.
But we'll leave some of those as surprises then, right?
Yeah. Atlas menswear. That's he does custom clothing for like bodybuilders and stuff. Really interesting business. But I know there's more that I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, yeah, I know you've got a lot. I know you've worked hard and put a lot of thought into creating the content for this podcast. So I hope that everyone will tune in and keep up with each episode. And Ben, thanks for taking the time and just sharing about yourself. I know you'd rather have someone else talk than you talk yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
But I appreciate you starting this podcast, and I'm excited to follow along and listen and help wherever I can. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of the pilot and helping me on my way. I know that you're going to continue to help me along, but I'm pumped about it. Hopefully, keeps it inspires some people, which I didn't realize I did with the Instagram. I have people reach out to me pretty regular, actually, about how what I'm doing inspires them to get into stuff. So maybe this will do the same.
Just another avenue for that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Ben. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.